Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel and our program, Get to Know. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my cohort in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It's great to be here. And one of my favorite people on the planet is here with us today.
Yes.
I like to call him the International Man of Mystery. He's the UK's, excuse me, number one author of, for all genres. He's written over 44 books. He is an international bestseller. He's done movies. He's got a television show. He's done a little bit of everything. We're going to get to know him today. We've got Peter James. Welcome to Get to Know.
Well, that's some build-up. Thanks, Kath. I try and live up. Thank you, Doug.
No, it's just great to have you here, Peter. And one of the things that I like to delve into is your childhood. And I would like to know if you feel that your childhood influenced you in becoming a writer, and if so, how? What kind of a child were you? Were you introverted, extroverted, etc.?
That's great question. I was introverted and shy. I'm pretty much an only child because I had a sister when I was 3, but she died at 9 months old. And then I had a second sister born, so basically 7 years younger. So that's such a big gap. So I just found comfort and joy in reading. So I was an avid reader, and I was an avid letter writer as well. I used to write to authors. I think the first letter I wrote to an author was to Enid Blyton.
Oh, wow.
I said, dear Enid Blyton, I've just read 5 Go to Treasure Island, and I really liked it a lot, but something's bothered me, which is they spent 7 days on this island, and not one of them went to the bathroom in all that time.
That's definitely a child's thought. Yeah.
She wrote a very nice letter back saying, Dear Peter, thank you for your kind words. I do want to assure you they did go to the toilet, but I just didn't think little boys and girls were interested, so I left those bits out. So the rest of my childhood, I avidly consumed everything new that she wrote in the hope that one day, somewhere in one of her books, someone would take a dump.
That's such a
You got to have reachable goals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you were going to write seriously? What brought you to that doorstep? And all the stuff that's gone on since then, of course, but what got you in the door?
Oh, I really wanted to be a writer right from the age of 7. I kind of wanted to write books. I wanted to make films, and I wanted to race cars. Those are the 3 things I wanted to do in my life. And I never had any confidence as a kid at all. And I had one English teacher when I was at school when I was about 14 who really encouraged me. And I won my school poetry prize. And I still didn't think I had real confidence. And he encouraged me to go on writing. And I started writing short stories. And then for my 17th birthday, my dad gave me the best birthday present of my life, which was a little portable electric typewriter and this great big battle axe of a woman who came to the house, stood over me, covered the keys in little sticky pads, and made me learn to touch type. And if I looked down at them, she'd whack my fingers with a ruler, saying, "Don't look." And by the time I was 17 years and 2 weeks old, I could type as fast as any secretary. And that's always stood me in great stead.
Sure, except you might have bruised knuckles. I don't know. Your hands fared.
You can type with bruised knuckles.
Well, your career, you have not only, obviously written all these best-selling novels and stuff, but they've been turned into movies and TV shows and stage productions of all things. How did the stage productions come about? That's one of the oddest things for a novelist to happen. It's just amazing.
Thanks, Doug. I've always loved live theater. I think that there's what I love about live theater above all else is that things go wrong. Yes. And I'll explain what I mean in a second.
Yes.
I basically got approached by a producer called Josh Andrews. His father was a very famous actor, Anthony Andrews. He was in Brideshead Revisited, a lot of movies. And Josh had been working for a producer called Bill Kenwright, who produced all the Agatha Christie plays. And I bumped into Josh. I'd known him. We worked together briefly in the movie business back in the late 90s. And he told me that he just left Bill Kenwright's company and was starting out on his own. And he said, we've done so well with the Agatha Christie plays. You're probably the nearest thing to a living Agatha Christie. Have you ever thought about having anything adapted? And I said, absolutely. It's almost my first love, the theatre. And what I mean by things going wrong is there's in my first Roy Grace novel, Dead Simple, the book starts with Michael Harrison, the main character, being buried alive in a coffin. It's a bachelor party prank, and they put him in a coffin in a grave in remote woodlands, and they're going to come back in 2 hours and dig him back up. And they've left him a walkie-talkie and a bottle of whiskey and a porno magazine. And they're off, and they drive off in the van. They've covered the grave up. They drive off, and they're joking. They say, we're off to a pole dancing club. We'll come back 2 hours. And they hit a cement truck head on, and they're all killed. And Michael is left stuck in the coffin. And that's the first. And on the stage play, they did, well, we toured like 26 weeks around England. And they built this incredible set, which was 2-tier. The top level was, if you imagine, a forest, and there's a grave, and they got the van facing the audience with its lights. And they take him out the van, and he's well drunk, and they put him in a coffin, and they lower him, and then you can see the bottom half is the glass side of the grave. So he's in that, and they drive off, and they're all jostling and joking on the walkie-talkie, and then bang, this incredible bang. And the whole theater is completely dark, even the emergency lights off for a few seconds. And then there's this terrible silence. And the audience is completely gripped. And you can hear Michael Harrison, like the guy playing, the actor playing him, Jamie Lomas, and on his walkie-talkie, where am I? And in one performance, somebody in the audience very helpfully shouted out, you're in Woking, mate.
Well, that's amazing. It's that you could translate that to the stage is just. I remember when I saw Les Mis for the first time, how they worked the sets and it changed around. I thought, wow. And of course, Phantom, how they did all the stuff they did. I'm like you. I love live theater, and it's amazing to me they can remember all their lines. It's just amazing to me.
For you and Kathy and me, every page of every book we write is always going to be the same.
Right.
No two performances of a stage play are ever going to be the same.
Exactly. Well, tell us about Roy Grace.
Yeah.
I mean, who is Roy Grace, and how did he become, the modern James Bond, if it were? I mean, he's about as popular right now. I mean, I think I've even seen images of him on the side of police cars.
Yeah, indeed. Now I got asked back in 2002 if I'd ever thought of creating a detective as a central character, and just sort of winding the clock back. What happened? I desperately wanted to write, and I wrote the Great British Novel when I was 19. Well, nobody else thought it was, and I didn't get much.
Right.
It did get me an agent in New York, but
is it still in a drawer? Did you publish it?
No, he wanted me to work on it, and then but I wrote a second book and then a third book, and then I went to Canada and I got a job writing television. I was I was working as a gopher on this daily program for preschool children called Polka Dot Door. I went out at 7:45 in the morning, and one day the producer came in a panic, and he said, the writer's sick. We don't have a show. I read your CV. You won your school poetry prize. Can you write today? And this stuck me in a corner with an IBM Selectric golf ball. This is 1970.
Oh my gosh.
My typing lessons came in. So I wrote the script, and they liked it, and they hired me to write it 3 days a week for the next year. So I wrote to my agent, because in those days there wasn't email. I said, I got this great job writing this kids show. He wrote back and he said, you asshole. He said, you want to be an author? You want to write novels? You think you're going to write television? But kids all day long, they go home and write a novel in the evening. He said, go work in a factory or a library. Anyhow, he was right. I then got kind of suckered into, and I started making film, and I got to 27, and I met my then to be now long ex-wife, and she said, when are you going to write this novel you've always talked about? And I read an article in the Times, there was a shortage of spy thrillers. I thought I could write a spy thriller. So I did. I made it up. And to my amazement, I sent it to my agent, discovered he died 4 years ago.
Oops.
Yeah. Anyhow, I got a new agent, and he got me a 2-book deal to write 2 spy thrillers. And anyway, this was 1980. And probably the best day of my life was when he made that phone call telling me I got this 2-book deal. The worst day of my life was the day the first one was published. It was called Dead Letter Drop. And I ran around all the bookshops. It wasn't anywhere. I think they printed 1,800 copies, of which 1,500 had gone to libraries. And the book didn't sell. And the second book sold even less. And I poured my heart out to a friend who worked for Penguin at a party. She was actually a woman called Lizzie Buchan, who became a successful author herself. And she said, what on earth are you doing writing spy thrillers? She said, people who read are smart. They don't just want a page-turning story. They want to learn something about the author's experience, the author's view of the world. What can you teach the world about spies? You're up against someone like John le Carre, who's come out of the security services. So you've got to write about something that you're passionate about, and B, you can research and you've got access to. And I took that away with me. A week later, my then wife and I got burgled.
Oh, wow.
And a young detective came to take fingerprints, and he saw my first 2 books. And he said, oh, you're an author. He said, if you ever want any research out with the police, give me a call. And my then wife and I became friends. He was married to a detective, and we became really close friends over the following kind of 18 months. And he started introducing me to other cops. And I just found their world fascinating. And I thought, for a writer, nobody sees more of human life in a 30-year career than a police officer.
Right.
And that started my interest. And I became really good friends with one particular officer. I think you guys met him, Dave Gaylor. He came out to Thriller Fest once. He rose to become basically head of homicide for Sussex Police in England in 2002. And my publisher said, had I ever thought of creating a detective novel with a detective as a central character? So I went to Dave Gayer and I said, how would you like to be a fictional cop? And he loved the idea. So he is my real life Roy Grace. He doesn't look like him, but Roy is completely modeled on him. And we worked together on, I'm just working on the 21st Roy Grace novel at the moment. We work together very closely. He reads every 100, 150 pages, tells me how he would really have thought and acted in the situation I books. So that's, and the books have been going amazingly from strength to strength. And about 8 years ago, a friend of mine emailed me and he said, whatever you're doing, go outside and buy a copy of today's Daily Mail newspaper. So I did. And down on the 3rd page was a photograph of what is now our Queen Camilla. She was then Duchess.
Yeah.
8 of my Roy Grace novels behind her. And she said in a newspaper article how much she liked my books. And so I wrote to her. And she wrote back, and she was absolutely delightful. And she writes to me after every book. So much.
Wow, that's just so cool.
And I'm now to the point where she has, through the master of the royal household, she has suggested I might like to set a murder in the royal household.
Oh, so would you be able to go and do a lot of research and just hang out there?
I am. I'm spending a day behind the scenes at Buckingham Palace in a couple of weeks' time. I'm 50, 60 pages into this, which will be out. The book will be out at the end of September next year. So
that's gonna be fantastic.
So didn't your family have some connection with the Queen or something? Didn't your mother do something? I think I remember you telling me that over a drink one night.
Yeah, it's my one connection with Shakespeare, Doug, and my only one connection. In that Shakespeare's father was a glove maker, and my father and mother were glove makers to the Queen.
Yes.
My mother originally made the gloves for the Queen's going away dress when she was Princess Elizabeth and got married in 1947. My family have painted gloves for the royal family ever since.
That is amazing. And are they still making
Yeah,
gloves?
the company's called Cornelia James, and my sister runs it with her husband today.
That
Wow.
is
So
just
my one connection to Shakespeare.
So when you write this book, you've got to put the glove making in there.
I would
Of
think
course, yes.
Yeah.
one of the
So
Yeah.
clues.
so what's next for you? What do you,
Yeah.
besides that book, what else are you working on? Because I know you're not just doing one thing.
Well, I've got a very exciting book about to come out, which is called "They Thought I Was Dead: Sandy's Story." You just, I think, flashed the title very kindly.
Yeah.
Roy, I guess what makes Roy Grace kind of different from other detectives is that when we first meet him in the novel Dead Simple, we learn that he's just coming up to his 39th birthday, and 10 years before, his wife, Sandy, who he absolutely loved and adored, vanished off the face of the earth on his 30th birthday. He came home ready to go out to dinner with some friends, and she was gone. And for the 10 years until we finally meet him in Dead Simple, he's been functioning as an effective homicide detective, but all that time he's been dogged by this personal puzzle of his own that he cannot solve. You know, was she abducted? Did she get murdered? Did she have an accident? Did she lose her memory? Did she run off with a lover? And I've seeded throughout the novels little snippets of what might have happened, and also little snippets of maybe she wasn't quite the perfect wife that he'd always idolized. And I've had so much speculation from fans. I think one of my classic emails from a fan was saying, "Dear Mr. James, you've been teasing us a long time about Roy Grace's missing wife, Sandy. Now, I'm extremely worried because you're clearly a lot older than I am. And I reckon I'm a lot fitter than you are, which means you're going to die before me. I hope you left the secret of what happens to her safely in the publisher's vaults."
That is so funny. That is so Please don't die before you give us the punchline.
Yeah. And I had another one, really touching one from a guy in a hospice saying, I'm terminally ill. The doctors say I don't have long. Please tell me what happened to Sandy. I promise I won't tell anybody.
Wow.
Oh my
So
gosh.
for everybody with that curiosity, They Thought I Was Dead, Sandy's Story. I mean, it's a standalone if you liked kind of Gone Girl or Girl on the
Sure.
Train, that kind of novel. But for everyone who's a fan of Roy Grace, they get an extra dimension about it out of it by seeing really what happened to her.
But that's very
Oh,
clever
can't
storytelling.
wait.
That I like that concept, and it's a little line that keeps dragging people through the series
Mhm.
above and beyond Roy himself and all the stories. But I mean, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Well,
So
it's
that's
kind of like reading all the books to find out if somebody finally uses the bathroom on the island.
I love it. And then I've got a new book, a new Roy Grace coming out in the autumn, and it's coming out in September in England. I think it'll be in the States pretty much around that time. And the premise of it, I get told, I'm sure you, Kath, and you, Doug, people come up to you and say, "You're right. I've got a story you're going to want to write."
Oh my gosh, if
Mhm.
only I had a dime every time. Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
it's 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 probably the question you get asked second most to where do you get your ideas from.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm,
exactly.
mhm, mhm.
But anyway, I'm at a funeral 2 years ago, and the son of a friend of mine comes up to me, and he's quite a sly character. And he said, "Peter, I've got a story you're going to want to write." And I go, "Sure, John, I'm sure you have." He said, "No, you're going to write this." So I said, "Please." Well, so we had a coffee,
Mhm.
and he said, "The guy I know who's proper dodgy." Do you have dodgy in America? Like,
Yeah, yeah, we know what you mean. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
yes,
kind of like sketchy.
Yeah.
guy I know, he was at a funeral 6 months ago, and he arrives late. It's a rammed church, country church, pissing with rain, no pews available. He has to stand at the back. And halfway through the service, he notices a guy sitting 6 rows in front of him, whose funeral he went to 2 years before and gave the eulogy at.
Oh my gosh. That is a good story.
That is diabolical.
That's the opening chapter of One of Us is Dead, which is the next Roy Grace.
Oh, I
Oh,
love it.
that
I
sounds
love it.
fabulous.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So are you still racing cars?
Yeah.
I am, yeah. I have a 1962 Corvette, which actually raced in period and all the kind of main circuits back in time. So I racing that a few times a year in England. I love it. My
No,
publishers,
I mean,
I
it's
think
got to
my
be
publishers would rather I took up something more sedate like bowls.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be
Love making. Yeah.
very dangerous. I mean, well, you are a dangerous international man of mystery, but I mean, my gosh. I mean, there's nothing you don't, it doesn't frighten you. You just love it.
I love it. Yeah, I had a really bad accident in 2013 when I
I
rolled
remember.
four
Yep.
times. I came to Thriller Fest and I think I had a walking stick because I was literally
Hmm.
Yeah.
such
You're
bad
pretty beat
fast.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. But I find I don't know about both of you, but writing is very sedentary. Uh,
Hmm.
and I find if I go to a race meet, whatever I'm doing, if I'm walking the dogs, if I'm running, even brushing my teeth, I'm thinking about my next chapter.
Right.
Whereas
Yeah.
if I spend a weekend at a race circuit, I'm completely consumed. You don't have time to think about anything else. Yeah,
Um,
it's all getting the car scrutineered, it's practice, qualifying, and the race itself. You aren't going to start thinking about your next chapter when the bend's coming up at 140 miles an hour. And
yeah.
I come back Monday morning after a race weekend, my brain is completely fresh. It's like I've been on holiday for
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So it's a true break.
and
I
it's a
like.
different world of people as well. So it's quite because most of I love authors and yeah, but most of my life is either with other writers or with the police. But
Mm.
racing is like I got a kind of different set of race friends, and it's away from it's like all going to a parallel universe where we just do stupid things with boys' toys.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's very important. And as we were saying just earlier, you're also running these days. So you've got
Yeah,
a marathon coming up.
yeah. I've always been a runner, but I've kind of a friend of mine for my last birthday bought me an entry in this half marathon with the race number 1, the bastard. So I thought, okay, I have to do it.
You have to
So I've
do
been
it.
on a training program, but I love it. It really charged me up, and I've discovered in the last few years talking books, and I listen to talking books when I'm running,
Yeah.
Oh,
and I,
yeah. Mhm.
I get through twice the number of books now a year that I used to.
Exactly.
You're multitasking.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I listen to them if I'm cooking. I listen to them. I walking the dog sometimes, driving. It's a great one. There's so many books that I want to read. Um,
Yes.
I'm
I
sure.
know,
Yeah.
it's so true.
Uh,
There
uh,
really aren't enough hours in the day.
uh,
Just even if we just sat down and just focused on writing and reading, there's just not enough hours in the day. So what's on your list now? Do you have any big adventures coming up or anything that's on the horizon where you're like, I really want to accomplish that?
well, Grace on television is now it's
Mhm.
just starting shooting its 5th season, which is great, and
Fantastic. Yeah.
yeah, that States on BritBox, and that's doing really well. And Laura and I have been little extras in a few of the episodes.
So that's fun.
A
I'm
la
And,
Hitchcock, right? In
gonna
the
have to
yeah,
check
background.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. For
and the
sure.
next series, I want to be a cop and say to somebody, "You're nicked."
So
So
cool.
that's my kind of. But no, I love what I'm doing, and we're working on a new stage play. It'll be my 7th stage play, which starts in January.
Oh my
Oh,
Uh,
God.
and I've got standalone thrillers that I want to do, and I'm working on a book on writing as well at the moment. But
Oh,
I love.
oh, cool.
yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that too. We're gonna have to have you back. We could go on for hours and hours, Peter. It's just fantastic to have you. Peter
It's
James, I mean, thank you. And I hope you're gonna do a tour in America with your next book launch.
I really hope so. I haven't done one for a while, and so it's well about you. I got the last time it was kibosh, obviously with COVID, but I love being in
Yeah.
America. I spent a huge chunk of my working life there, and um, the easiest thing in the world is for me to think, yes, I'll do it.
Well, we are going to be crossing our fingers
Yes.
that you come out, and we're definitely going to have you back on. I mean, as we get closer, keep us posted on everything, and we will definitely have you back on.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you
to
so
see you.
much.
Thank
So
you.
much. It was great.
Yeah,
And we will see
absolutely.
you before too long, I am certain.
Brilliant.
I want to ask our viewers to please click the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithms, and also subscribe so we can bring you more of these interviews. Thank you for being with us today. And we have a lot more coming up, so come back and see us.
Until next time.